And everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with Lightning Drive takes Rangoon, talking about the drive to Rangoon and how they well, took it back. We're now on to Berliners Start Digging. May the 4th, 1945. Must clean up own mess. When the fighting stopped in Berlin, the troubles of the inhabitants were far from over. There remained the immense task of reconstruction, a job to be done by those who started the shooting. Here, German men and women begin to shovel the vast ruin of their city. Even before Allied occupation troops entered the city, the Russians put the Berliners to work. Yeah, to be fair, there's a lot of cleaning up that's going to have to be done here. Berlin is kind of a lot of rubble at this point. Like they said, it's just a bunch of ruin. And yeah, the Soviets definitely put them to work. They're going to. The Soviets, let's just be honest, maybe weren't the nicest sometimes. So they would definitely do quite a bit, you could say, to make sure or to ensure that these people were fixing up their city, because it's no longer German, it's now Soviet. At least some of it will be. The North German forces surrender. May the 4th, 1945. Monty lays down terms. On May the 4th, in a ordinary army tent at Lüneburg Heath near Hamburg, Field Marshal Sir Bernard Montgomery reads ultimatum for the surrender of German land, sea, and air forces in northern Germany, Holland, and Denmark as well. Hearing the terms, seated, facing camera, are Konter Admiral Wagner, naval liaison, and General Admiral, General Admiral, that's a weird way to have it, Hans Georg Friedberg, General of the Infantry, Kunzel, in the picture below. Right here. In the picture below, signs the surrender document as Field Marshal Montgomery looks, um, looks sternly on. The mass surrender in the north delivered more than 1,000,000 German soldiers into the hands of the Allies, closing hostilities for the Canadian Army fighting in Holland, and the British Second Army fighting in Germany. Yeah, so this is a pretty big deal, obviously. The North's knocked out, and Denmark and, they say Holland, but they mean the Netherlands. Um, the fighting is still going on there. The Germans still had troops in there. Um, and the Brits, it took a little bit to really shake them up. But with this surrender, that fighting's done, and those countries can be freed now and given back to the people of those countries rather than under German occupation. Also, it's kind of funny. We're getting so far in these pages, I'm now on the fourth book, that we're getting to page 1940. There's 1941. Oh boy, we're moving through the war real quick here. A U-boat nest is seized at Bremen Harbor. May 1945. 40 subs captured. When units of the 95th Infantry Division moved into the sector around Bremen, many U-boats were caught on the ways at Werfthafen in Bremen Harbor. This dry dock, one of Germany's largest, held at the time 40 submarines, some of which are shown here in the various stages of repair and reconstruction. Construction. When the war ended, German U-boats began to surrender at sea. The U-boats are quite a bit more annoying for the Allies, you could say. They're a little bit more dangerous. You can't necessarily find them right away, and they're really one of Germany's main ways of fighting against the Allies. In the sea, their navy more or less has been knocked out by this point, except for the U-boat. The U-boat is kind of cheap. Um, you can have a lot of them, and they're just patrolling, and they won't get found as easily, and they could just do some damage, slip away, and they'll be good. Japs give up at the Kerma Reto, May the 4th, 1945. Sensible Japs. A group of Nipponese soldiers, tired of the fight, climb out of the rocks and bushes of one of the islands of Kerma Reto, near Okinawa, to give themselves up to the crew of a picket boat. In their bundles, they carried money, razors, diaries, toilet articles, photographs, and cigarette holders. There were no mass surrenders in the Pacific, but as time went on, more and more of the Japanese seemed willing to give up rather than hazard the doubtful reward of dying for the emperor in samurai fashion. The full dinner pail below had far more charm for these Japs than the honor paid the dead in distant Japan. American propaganda leaflets, as well as American power, seemed to be having a growing effect on the Bushido spirit. So, yeah, they actually touch on quite a few truthful things here. There are no real mass surrenders in the Pacific. The Japanese are not going to give up. They have, like they said here, they have the Bushido spirit, the way of the samurai. You know, they don't want to give up. And some of it is that honorable death kind of thing, but some of it's also the stuff that they've been told about the Americans and about the other powers. They're told if they surrender, they're going to be tortured, they're going to be eaten alive, they're going to be all these things. And then when they get captured, they're surprised. There's one story of a Japanese guy who surrendered. He told his story obviously after the war, but when he got captured, they checked him, medical, and he thought, okay, they're just sizing me up, seeing what's going to happen. And he gets some medical care. They put him on a boat, and he basically has free reign, more or less, with some limited mobility. To be fair, like he can't go certain places, other places, things like that. And they're given access to the mess hall. And they can just eat, you know, during the meals. They can eat. Here's the options, blah blah blah. Just like the soldiers. And he said it was something for him that really broke that whole idea because he looked at this and it's like they're treating us, these prisoners of war, with a ton of respect and um, honestly great uh, accommodations. And it really kind of just surprised them. There's a lot of these stories where the Japanese realize it's just like, what? That they realize that they were kind of lied to. Um, but what can you do? When you're them, you'll believe the lie until you have to face the truth. Germany surrenders unconditionally at Rheims, May 7th, 1945. Nazi collapse is complete. Okay, so this is going to be obviously a little bit of a longer read here. I'll try to hold this steady. The rapidly disintegrating Reich, most of it already overrun and defeated, capitulated formally in a little red schoolhouse at Reims, France. Reims? At 2:41 a.m. French time on May the 7th, May the 6th, 8:41 p.m. Eastern Wartime. After 5 years, 8 months, and 6 days of bloodshed and destruction, the general scene of the surrender in the upper left, so right here, shows the delegates of the victors and the vanquished coming to terms. With their backs to the camera are left to right, so right here, Our left to right. General Admiral Hans Georg Friedberg, Commander-in-Chief of the German Navy, Colonel General Gustav Jodl, Chief of Staff of the German Army, and Major General Wilhelm Oxenius, an aide to General Jodl. Facing the camera, seated left to right, are, oh boy, if it wants to focus. Oh boy, this is quite a few. But Lieutenant General F.E. Morgan, Staff Deputy, General Francois Cevez, representing France, Admiral H.M. Burrow, uh, commanding Naval Allied Expeditionary Forces, Lieutenant General, oh boy, I believe it's that guy, right? Yes. Lieutenant General Ivan Chermanev. Nope, I mixed that up. Sorry, they have this all kind of put together, and it's a little hard to see sometimes. So I guess we'll go back to the beginning. So there's Lieutenant F.E. Morgan, Francois, Admiral H.M. Burrow, commanding Naval Allied Expeditionary Forces, Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, Chief of Staff to General Eisenhower, Lieutenant General Ivan Chermanev, and General Suslaparfo. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Russian Lieutenant General Karl A. Spatz, and then Commanding General, U.S. Tactical and Strategic Air Force. And then all the way over here is another guy, and that's Air Marshal J.K. Robb, Deputy Chief of Staff, SHAEF. Oh boy, sorry, that was a little difficult there. There's a lot of names, and how they have it is a little confusing. And the picture in the upper right, Lieutenant General Smith signs, that guy right there, obviously, signs the surrender for the Supreme Allied Command. In the lower left, Colonel General Jodl signs for Germany. In the lower right, General Suslapov signs for the Soviet Union. So, yeah, you can see this is a pretty big deal. I got some Jodl, obviously, very well known by this point. Very important individual to Germany. So, and they can make sure they got representatives from all sides. It's interesting to think that like the big leaders aren't here. Obviously, there's to some degree you kind of don't want that in case, let's say, somebody decides this isn't really a surrender and it's more of a cutting off the head of the dragon. So, who knows? But I'm sure that for a lot of Germans and for a lot of the forces fighting in Europe, this is probably a nice sigh of relief. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you have ways that can improve these videos, leave a comment down below. I really appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.